everyone's being asked to use AI. Either your company is pushing it down your throats, or it feels like everyone who actually knows how to use it is miles ahead of you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of XMA Lectures. This is where the XMA community comes together to learn from people who tell you what you didn't know you needed. XMA Lectures' first lecturer is Rishi Bradoo. He is the co founder of Culture Compass, a community and culture design studio. They work with businesses to design culture aligned AI, where they train AI models in the organization's workflows and culture, taking AI from being a general purpose tool to a collaborative team member.
All right. Hi. We're going to be talking about building an AI team because I figured this is actually one of the most fun ways to develop our skill as AI operators. And what we're going to do is we're going to break this lecture down into two parts. So part one is about just making sense of AI. It's some of the fundamentals that we tend to forget, but it is also about cutting through all the media noise that is out there, which actually just creates an insane amount of overwhelm. So we're going to first cut that noise out. And then we're going to actually look at a few frameworks for how we can build an AI team. This is just a surface level overview. A lot of this is actually something that has to be really deep dived into, but at least we can figure out what the process for developing our skill as AI practitioners should be. We are entering a world where it is being rolled out across companies, across work streams, and we're going to discuss how we should be navigating that change. So let's start with making sense of AI. So the first thing to know about the AI media landscape is that there are two narrative games at play. There is AI is utopia and AI is dystopia. AI is going to remove all mundane work. It is going to lead to productivity gains. It's going to solve cancer, which is quite a grand claim. It's going to make smaller teams and greater output. And on the opposite side of that argument, you have, oh my God, this is going to create a wider loneliness epidemic. You're going to have widespread job loss. There's serious environmental damage happening. There is a real risk to cognitive decline. Uh, and these two narratives really cloud our judgment on whether we should or should not use the tool, how we should go about using the tool, etc. And just a couple of points to make here. I don't think either of these claims are entirely true or false. So, for example, there are people who are working in the sciences and have always been working in the sciences at solving problems like cancer and solving some serious medical and scientific problems. They're still doing that. They're just using AI in their workflow. But often the marketing makes it sound like AI is going to solve the problem. So the key thing to understand, why do we have these two media narratives, is tech CEOs and investors in AI companies have a single agenda, which is to increase adoption. And when they make such claims, it is simply to create mobilized behavior at scale. So for example, Claude's marketing strategy will often, for some reason, it coincidentally often looks like there is, oh my God, this new AI model can cause this crisis. And then the AI model comes out. So it tends to create this sense of my job is going to go, I need to learn the tool, etc. And that is by design. The important thing to know is both the utopian perspective of AI and the dystopian perspective are speculative. They are not predetermined. We do not really know if either of those two will shape up and how they will shape up. So I like to offer a third perspective. So you have utopia versus dystopia versus awareness. And awareness is simply accepting that the times are changing. The tool, what do we know about the tool today? We know that it is here. It is rolled out widespread. It is there in a lot of organizations. We know that it works, quote unquote, works. And we know that it has improved over time. So as new models have dropped, we know that the thinking, the reasoning has improved. The second thing we know is a lot of technology that we are used to is reshaping itself around AI. So the entire tech industry, from Apple to Microsoft, they're all looking at how AI works within their technology. And one of the biggest ones that have come out recently is Google, who is completely changing the way they're looking at search. So Google search, which has not changed in decades, is actually going to be transformed because of the way AI is being integrated. So this means that we don't really have a choice. The technology we are used to using is adopting AI. It is impacting the way we work because at the very least, you have founders, entrepreneurs who are rolling AI out to their teams. Um, The gap here is that they often don't know how to do the rollout or what training to offer. Because this is frontier technology, we're right at the edges of it. But a lot of them start seeing the benefits early and want to try and get the company working with it. So it is impacting the way we work. Most people are still using it as a search tool, and that's another ground reality. Is that the capability of this tool is already superseding our skill set for using it and our intuition for using it. So the way we most of us use it is as a search tool, and one step up from that is as a chatbot. But actually leveraging AI to improve the quality of work done is not something many of us have truly investigated at depth, at least the average, the larger population. So now it's important, whatever leaning you have, whether you believe AI is utopian, dystopian, or you're simply looking at being grounded in the reality of today with what AI is, it is very important to not be passive. It is very important to engage with technology that is causing big changes, widespread changes. So there are three ways you can get involved. If you have a utopian mindset, get involved in building with AI. So build companies around AI, try and work with these larger organizations, get involved in the creative process because you believe in a better future for this technology. If you have a dystopian mindset, that's not a bad thing because a lot of the way this technology is being built is highly unethical. And we do need people who are going to get involved in challenging companies on ethical stances, who are going to demand regulation, who are going to make it hard. And I think that's a very fair point because if companies are deciding that in a non-democratic way to roll out this life-changing technology, if it is life-changing, to so many people without permission, then we should demand as a population standards. We shouldn't be making it easy. So if you are worried about what AI is going to do, don't sit passively and say, oh yeah, I'm never going to use it. Take a stance and actually challenge companies, demand regulation, make an effort to actually bring things into a better place. And third, if you're grounded in just let me understand what's happening today instead of trying to design the future, um, learn to use the tools so that you can make informed decisions. There is a big difference between a professional who says I'm not going to use AI and a professional who says I'm not going to use AI because I know it is not the right tool for this particular function. And we would rather be in the latter than the former because the former now carries a blind spot. They don't really know if AI would have made their work better or not. And because of that, they're not sure about where the competitive edge in their peers is coming from. So you want to be aware so that you can be confident when you say, I do not want to use AI at the very least. But the last thing we want is to be passive. So now the big question, is it magic? It is not magic and it is not intelligence. I'll give you an example of what most people's first experience with AI is like. Imagine you come into work, there's a box that's sitting, it says, I'll do whatever you want. And you give it a posted request and you say, here is a request. And it goes into the box. And the request you write is, give me a report for so and so thing, or give me a marketing strategy. Simple instruction. And then what comes out of the box is this really nice, beautifully made 2-page marketing strategy, which looks really good and it's informative. And the first reaction somebody has because of that is, wow, mind blown. I did not like this. I used to take 2 hours to do this. Wow, this can do this. And what ends up happening is, you like a lot of people either go through it in detail and feel a little like maybe this isn't as good after 2 or 3 tries, or they'll hand it to somebody. They'll probably deliver it to a client or deliver it to their boss, and the person will come back and say, these numbers are completely off. Like this doesn't make sense. And then what happens is the experience for most people with AI becomes, this is a little overhyped. I don't know what the big deal is. And at this point, people check out. They're just like, I'm not able, the tool is not good. The tool doesn't deliver results as promised, so I'm not going to use it. Is the arc, the journey a lot of people go on in their first experiences with LLMs. So I want you to imagine the first ever calculator. And this is where that sense of magic comes from in people's minds that, oh, this is going to replace humanity kind of mindset. Uh, if somebody has never seen a digital calculator before and they're used to doing mental mathematics consistently and they're used to, handling calculations in their head, and they come across the first ever calculator that never makes mistakes, it's going to look magical. It's going to feel like, oh my God, this thinks better than human beings do. And that's not entirely true. We know now, because we've used a calculator for so long, that it does one thing and one thing really well. Better than us, but it does one thing.
Before we dive into how AI works, let's pause. Did you notice a theme? We've spent less time talking about AI and more time talking about our relationship with AI. We're not trying to convince you to use AI. It's about just helping you see it clearly. So far, we've seen that AI is often talked about in extremes. Either something will save the entire world or destroy it. But both of those are narratives. Regardless of where you stand, AI is already changing the way we work. The important thing isn't choosing a side, it's choosing not to be passive.
LLMs are not too different in that metaphor. And the way I like to compare it is they both apply two different kinds of logic. So a calculator uses something called deterministic logic. This basically means the same input is always leading to the same output. 2 plus 2 is always equal to 4, right? The hardware works in like very clear steps that are predictable. So you're very comfortable with the pattern. There's no room for variation, interpretation, or judgment. Like it's a fact. And therefore it is high trust. When a calculator ever responds 2 plus 2 equal to 5, it means it's seriously broken. LLMs, large language models, do not operate in the same way. They use something called probabilistic logic. And probabilistic logic is basically trying to predict what is likely to come next. And they use probability to decide this. So, for example, what is a person's favorite animal? In the backend, an LLM looks at the training data. That means all the words it has read and has been trained on, what it has learned. Um, and it looks at what is the highest likelihood, most recurring answer, and it looks at what is the most probable answer to that question. And in its data, it'll be able to calculate, oh, 70% dog, 25% likely to be cat, 5% likely to be horse, and then it gives you a person's favorite animal is a dog. The way it behaves, like if you typed in Humpty Dumpty ... it'll complete it as Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. And a lot of the way we engage can feel very human-like. Now, the reason it feels human-like is just like the person who experienced the first ever calculator. We do not intuitively understand the relationship between probabilistic logic, informed guess taking, and technology. We are not used to engaging with technology that is probabilistic in its behavior. So this is where we start feeling like AI gets things wrong. I like to challenge that. Does AI really get things wrong? Has become my dominant question. Like I don't think AI gets things wrong. So simple exercise. If you ask a person, so I've done this with LeJoy before, where we've gone about in a back and forth, and I've asked questions and I've cataloged his questions, and I've done the same exercise with Claude, and we've had similar reactions, very similar reactions. So if I ask you what color is the sky, the most likely answer, the most natural answer is blue. If I ask you what color is the sky when it is raining, the most likely answer is gray or dark, or it's cloudy, or is color would be gray. If I ask you, no, that's the color of the clouds. What's the color of the sky? Oh yeah, sorry, the color of the sky is blue, even though it is cloudy and it looks gray. What's the color of the sky at night? It's black. Is the sky really blue? No, it appears blue because of Rayleigh scattering. The sky is actually colorless. So when I ask it, what is the color of the sky? What is the right answer? There is no right answer. There is simply a best guess based on what you are asking the tool. So right and wrong actually becomes a matter of human interpretation of what has been given out. Now, this doesn't mean that there aren't falsifications in the information that LLMs give out. So LLMs take a great guess, but a guess nevertheless at numbers, at certain pieces of information, and they give you the most probable likely answer based on their data set. And probability does not mean 100% accurate. So the answers, what we do understand about this tool is that because it is not deterministic, it is not a fact-giving machine, it is a probability-giving machine. We understand that it is dependent on the context you give it and your interpretation of what it gives you. I want to touch upon something called the context window. So if any of you have used a chat, you open up Chat GPT or Claude and you have this huge chat section that opens up. And this chat section has something called a context window, right? So reminder context is what we want to inform, the input we want to give the LLM so that it gives us a very good output. So that chat is the context window. And that context window has some limitations. So I want you to imagine that context window is a table and your AI teammate is sitting in front of that table ready to get to work. So the first thing is that it is dependent on what is on the table. So if you don't put clear work on the table in front of it, it won't really know what to do. It's not just going to start automatically doing things. So we usually come, if you come to the table and say, here's a post-it, here's the instruction, now go do it, it's going to give you a generic output because it's a very generic input. But if you give it details, this is the project scope, this is what we're working on, you're putting some files and documents on the table, then it can look through that, it understands the scope of work, it sits down and really structures its output to match the quality of the input, right? So what's on the table matters. But the other thing is that the table has its limits. So like a table, it has edges. Things fall off the edges. So information that you give it will fall off the edges. And every time you start a new chat, that table is wiped clean. So you're starting fresh every time. So every chat you're starting is starting fresh. Now, an important note is that a lot of these tools do try and create something called quote unquote memory, which is designed, they have different terms for this, but it's trying to share pieces of information between your chats because they've realized that a lot of people are not very skilled at creating context. And this is ruining the product experience. So companies tend to create these tools that share information across chats. It's in your settings, and I always recommend turning it off because this is a clumsier way to work. For example, if I was handling two different projects, if I was working on a marketing campaign for a shoe company and I was working on a marketing campaign for chocolates, and these are on two different chats, and the tone of voice for the campaign for chocolates is different from the shoe company, right? What's going to happen is because of that memory overlap, the tool is going to refer to information from the wrong chat at times. And it won't bring all of that context and carry it over like a genius. It'll just pick up pieces from it and bring it over. And this will mess up your process. So it's like having too many tables and it's trying to decide what from which table to bring to its table. So the one rule is to assume that if it is not on the table, assume your AI teammate can simply not see it. Now, the important thing is that there are three ways that this context window goes wrong. One, we discussed, if it is bare, that means there's not enough on the table. You have a generic input and a generic output. If it is crowded, the point gets lost. This is called context rot. A phenomenon that we've discovered is just giving an AI tool more context does not mean it gives you better outputs. It is actually designing the context that matters, and designing the context as well give you a designed output. And finally, overflowing. Like AIs have natural limits now that they'll tell you the chat session is over. And that's a problem because if your entire session is not well designed, you're working extensively on this one table, and then somebody's coming and swiping that table clean and saying, you can't continue on this. And now you have to start fresh on another table without any memory from the previous session. So having really good technique for managing your sessions matters quite a bit. The one thing I want to take away is that this behavior of this tool indicates that humans are necessary. I do not believe that jobs are going to go. I do believe that jobs are going to change. Why do I believe humans are necessary? Because at its very core, framing the right inputs is a necessary skill, and assessing the output is a necessary skill. And using an LLM requires skill. This goes beyond just, I know how to write the sentence clearly. We'll be digging into that in much greater depth in a bit, but just want to check if there are any questions before we go to the next section.
Okay, you're probably wondering why you can't listen to the questions. That's because it's only available to community members who attend the lectures live. If you want to be there, follow our Instagram page. The link is in the description. or just comment XMA Lectures. We'll make sure you're notified. We're also trying to understand how Xavierites are using AI today. What's working, what's confusing, what's changing, and where people are stuck. To do that, we're running a short survey across students, faculty, and alumni. Your responses will help us better understand the ground reality and shape future learning opportunities within the XMA. It just takes 3 minutes. Comment survey and I'll make sure to send it to you. Alright, thank you so much for watching the first episode of XMA Lectures. I'm really glad you made it to the very end. And I'm really excited to see you in the next one. Second episode is going to be related to this, so see you there.